The next day, my doctor's surgery phoned up and said, "Can you come in?" Why? Your blood sugar is about to turn you into diabetic. You're not just pre-diabetic, you're right on. You're going to be diabetic. I guide trips. I go to Everest Base Camp, for example, Machu Picchu, places in Nepal. I take people up the highest mountain in the Atlas Mountains in Morocco. And it was literally killing me. I didn't know it. I mean, I was fit, I thought.
Then you can be fit and unhealthy.
You look at an endurance runner and you look at somebody who does resistance exercise. Let's say they're opposites, they're not, but let's say they are. One guy's going to have kept some muscle and the other guy is going to be like a stick. And I didn't want to be like a stick because I know, health span, when I'm 80, 85 or whatever, it's the muscle that's going to keep me standing up and not falling over.
You're about to see an interview with my friend Dave, who is 72 years old, and Dave leads adventure groups up some of the big mountains in the world, like the Atlas Mountains, Everest Base Camp, and Mount Kilimanjaro. The interesting thing is Dave didn't actually even start trying to get fit until he was around age 55. And as I discovered, he also completely reversed diabetes in his 60s within 6 weeks through diet change alone. So in this video, I want to try and give some insights from you guys who are over 30 and want to get in shape and fit for life, to start thinking about some of the things that we should be prioritising so that we can have a physically active and healthy life when we get to our 50s, 60s, 70s and beyond. We're going to dive into the physical training that Dave does, the diet that he used to have before that resulted in the diabetes issue, and the dietary changes that he made that allows him to be healthy and live physically active life now. I'll also put some free resources for you guys around this video somewhere in the description link. But beyond that, I hope you enjoy this interview with Dave.
First of all, who are you, where are you from, and what is it that you do for a living?
Okay, I'm Dave. My very best friend owns the Bucket List company, and what's happened over time is that he says to me, we run all these trips around the world, some of them are very physical, which ones would you like to do? So I guide trips. I go to Everest Base Camp, for example, Machu Picchu, other places in Nepal. I take people up the highest mountain in the Atlas Mountains in Morocco.
That's where we met.
That's where we met.
Yeah, Mount Tibkel.
I also recently the last 4 or 5 years, got into desert trekking. So I take a week trek across the Sahara Desert down by the Algerian border. So that's a kind of range of things. I can also lead on diving as well now, so which is good.
Awesome. Is that in Gozo? You do that?
In Gozo, yeah. And I'm looking forward to a trip next year. We've got a big trip going in Mauritius, and Keith needs somebody with him, and we're going to
look after him.
Yeah, make sure he's okay.
Yeah. And also this week, obviously, we're out on the Bucket List company Spanish adventure, which is like multi-activity stuff. Yeah. So you've been belaying me and the guys up and down rock cliffs, and you're holding on to our body weight and supporting us down. And then yesterday, high-speed downhill mountain biking. You beat me.
Yes, that was great.
I seen you flying past me. I was giving it my best. That's awesome. So you're 72 now. How long have you been doing this stuff?
Oh, this is really interesting. Since I was 65, I've been doing this trekking and mountain stuff. But I did start before that. I started before that, just out when I was younger, out walking. I learned to climb at Keith's Climbing Wall, but I didn't learn to climb until I was 55.
Awesome.
And things have progressed. I mean, I was a bit of a swimmer before that, and things have progressed like that, really. So physically, I've always tried to get out, but you'll know what this is like when you've got a young family and all the rest, and they're growing up. It's really hard to maintain, to start and maintain a habit. And I think that's the thing I would want to say when you've asked me before about this, is that there were times when it was just, I had to get up really early Sunday morning and do something. I knew I had to, but it was just once a week, maybe a swim or out in the cold, just going for a run. Once a week, the rest of the time sitting on my big backside in an office. But that, when you ask about the transition, I think that knowing I ought to do something and just doing that little thing over years, I'm not talking about just for a few weeks, somehow put in my mind when I've got more time, I'm going to do a bit more of it, because I used to love how I felt afterwards. It was starting that was hard. 6 in the morning was hard, you know, in the winter. So, but just once a week, put myself through the ringer, and I sort of knew I had to, but I wasn't fit by any standards. I was just going through the motions really, but those motions build up.
Yep. So that's interesting. So for a large part of your life, you weren't this fit and physically capable guy.
No.
It started like around midlife or late midlife,
Yeah.
and then going into your 60s and 70s.
Yeah, when I say 55, it's when I started climbing, and that, because that was at night in a climbing wall, I started going twice a week. So I had some activity twice a week then, and that was it until I retired. I didn't retire till I was 65, you know, from my other job.
Teaching, is that right?
I was teaching early on, and then I was in the education office. So
Yeah.
and
that very inactive.
it wasn't a physical job at all. It was pushing the keys, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so that habit sort of stayed with me, and that's what's helped me get to where I am now. And then I read a book, and the book was about, I think it's called Health Span. How long you, not just how long you live, but how healthy you are.
What that life looks like.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are living 72 and beyond,
Yeah.
right? 80s and stuff, but not a lot of people could do the kind of job that you do. And obviously you've made some conscious changes to be able to do that,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. And I think more people need to think about the future and not just like how long they're going to live, but what that life looks like.
Yeah.
It's mega important.
Yeah.
Which brings me on to the next point. You did make some more changes
I did.
to both your training regimes.
Yeah.
You went from like endurance stuff to mixing up based on longevity and also being able to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And then you made some changes to your diet. So we'll separate them both and let's talk about the training routines. How have those progressed and evolved over the past bunch of years since you started getting active?
Yeah, I talked about going climbing, didn't I? And then what that led into is I thought I would like to do some climbing in England. I mean, not climb, but like mountain stuff, you know, like the Ben and Snowdon and that sort of thing. So I started doing that when I could. It's, you know, it's time, isn't it? You've got to get there and all that. When I could, and I enjoyed that so much, and I was climbing, and that's when I met Keith, and Keith got me thinking about you could go abroad and do some of this, and it's a long story. It is a long story, but then I wanted to climb real mountains, as I call them, and so I ended up going to France with Keith, and we did a bit of climbing, and then I ended up going to the Dolomites. And
I'd love to go to the Dolomites. It's on the list. Yeah.
Beautiful place, and doing some of these Via Ferrata there, which you'll be able to talk about, I'm sure, at some point. And then I got to Chamonix, and I did some training, obviously, in England at the mountain centre, and then I went out and did some ice climbing and stuff like that. I'd never thought, Dean, when I was 40, I'd ever be doing anything like that. But slowly over time, because of these habits that have built up, one thing leads to another. And then what that led to was Keith saying, when you retire from your office job, you're going to work for me. I said, I'm never going to work for you, Keith. I'll work with you, and we'll do things together. And that's how I ended up here, really.
Yeah.
So
most people start slowing down and winding down.
Yeah, but
like at the back end.
Yeah. I mean, I have slowed down.
Oh, of course.
I have slowed down, and it takes me longer to recover and all the rest of it.
But like your lifestyle and activity has went up the way.
Yeah, it has. I have. My wife always says when I return, I go back to factory settings because I'm just wandering about the house like I'm lost, and it's because I have to recover.
Yeah.
But I'm not wrecked inside. I know my body is going to go slowly with it. But things have progressed, Dean. It's not. You don't just suddenly. I'm not just suddenly able to do it. If I look back, and you're making me do it today, it's just one thing, from a small thing, once a week, just making myself get out, a little bit of discipline with physical stuff. It's just led one thing to another, really. Yeah.
So, conventional fitness routines, what does that look like for you? How has that evolved over the years?
That has changed. Because of the mountains, I needed you want to do something, and how am I going to get myself ready to do it? And I used to do quite a bit of endurance stuff, so not massive, but half marathons, a lot of running. If I was going away on a trip just for a week to France and in the mountains, I'd spend a couple of months beforehand making sure I got the endurance, because you got thin air, you're going up a mountain, you've got a heavy pack, you just got to, so I got longer and longer runs. That has changed. Now I'm older. What I realised was I was losing. What you do naturally, lose muscle mass. I was never a big guy, but it's called sarcopenia, and all the science is saying endurance. If you look at an endurance runner and you look at somebody who does resistance exercise, let's say they're opposites, they're not, but let's say they are. One guy's going to have kept some muscle, and the other guy is going to be like a stick. And I didn't want to be like a stick, because I know health span, when I'm 80, 85 or whatever, it's the muscle that's going to keep me standing up and not falling over.
The muscle and the bone density.
Yeah, and bone density. And my dad fell getting into bed, broke his hip, and it was just a trajectory down, broke his hip, in hospital, they fixed that, he got pneumonia and he died.
Yeah.
That's hard for me to say it just like that.
Yeah.
But it was because he'd become sedentary. He was sitting in a chair.
I was speaking with my functional medicine doctor about this on her podcast recently, because her podcast is called The Longevity.
Yes.
It's all about health span. And we were talking about actually the most common reason that people die in their 80s, 90s is when they fall, break a hip, because the bones are quite brittle at that age, unless you're doing some strength exercise.
Yes.
And it's not a broken hip, it's spending too long sedentary, trying to go through a surgery process, even if they do it at that stage, and your body just declines from there.
No, because of that, I'm scared of chairs.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm scared of, is chairs.
Yeah.
Sitting in them too long, really. But
So have you felt big benefits physically, like from day to day, and a difference in what you're able to do on hiking the mountains and guiding people up rocks and all that, from doing the resistance training, the strength work?
I definitely. What's happened with my running is I have moved to, this is going to sound not enough, but hill sprints once a week.
No, it's awesome.
100-metre hill sprints once a week. I didn't start off doing 10. I did half of one, and sort of,
That's where you need to start.
Yeah, and over time, what that's done is I know my VO2 max, and I'm not into a lot of physiological science, but I know my capacity to walk up a hill is really good because of it. Also, because I go to high altitude where there's thin air, when you're sprinting, that's anaerobic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So your body is actually getting used to the idea of exerting itself without taking in oxygen, but using what's in the body. So I think I know, because I take younger people myself up to 18,000 feet. I know it works, you know. So that I do that once a week, and I think those fast twitch muscles, they call them, don't they?
Yeah.
I think those are part of keeping you able to react quickly if you're going to fall or strong. It just feels good.
Well, those fast twitch are the first to go in contributing to the sarcopenia process. And you know, it shouldn't really be this way, but most adults start to experience that after the age of 30. And the reason for that is it wouldn't have been like that when we were hunter-gatherers.
No, sure.
And we were all doing physical work.
Yeah.
But because in Western societies we all largely live very sedentary lives, cars are now like household necessities. They didn't used to be.
Yeah.
A lot of people have got 2 or 3 cars in the driveway these days. You know, you can order food from an app, it turns up on your door. People just aren't as active. So most adults, it said, also will never sprint again after the age of 30 because they don't need to. You know, we don't need to evade a predator or anything like that anymore.
Running away from a lion.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not sprinting, moving quickly. We're not lifting heavy. We're not active in general. So that's why it's starting to happen now, like after 30 years old. So, and which also reduces your metabolic rate. How much energy you're burning has a massive impact on your health. So the fact that you're sprinting in your 70s, plus lifting weights, and then that which supports all the adventure lifestyle, it's incredible. And it's a great example to anybody who, regardless age, 30s, 40s, 50s, who is struggling with their health and fitness and maybe thinking, I'm on the decline. Well, no, look what you've managed to achieve from where you were at, starting from your 50s.
Hope you're enjoying this one with Dave. Sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to take a few seconds to tell you about the Dad Bod Debrief. This is a free resource for men over 30 that unlocks 27 days of battle-tested fat loss and physical transformation intel for men over 30. Every day for 27 days, you'll get some of the best insights from my experience as a military physical trainer, and then going on to help hundreds of guys over 30 transform their health, body and physical fitness. Check any of the description links around this video, or comment the word debrief in the comment section below and I'll get it to you.
But the other thing is, you mentioned it earlier about diet. I'm saying all this, and I don't want your listeners to get the wrong idea. I was trying to keep fit and doing these things, but I had a big shock. I was had to have an operation on my hand, and they did the like a pre-operation check, and they said, "Oh, your heart rate's too low." Well, it was low. I was doing a lot of training at that time, endurance training. Your heart rate's too low. We're going to do some extra tests. Well, they did the test. The next day, my doctor's surgery phoned up and said, "Can you come in?" Why? Your blood sugar is about to turn you into diabetic. You're not just pre-diabetic. You're right on. You're going to be diabetic.
Right. So at this point, were you overweight?
I was not.
No,
I was not. I didn't think.
Yeah.
So I didn't think. Apparently there's two kinds of people, and it's. I think the kind I am is rarer, but two kinds. Some people show their weight on the outside, and I'm what's called apparently a toffee. That's thin on the outside and fat on the inside.
Yeah, so it's like your visceral fat.
Yeah, it was visceral fat,
the
and
fat's
I was loaded with it, and I didn't know. If you looked at me, you'd have said, "There's a." My doctor lived in the same village, and he said, "I'd say to you, get fit and lose weight." He said, "But I see you out running." He said, and I said, "I can't ask you to lose any more weight."
Yeah.
But it was all on the inside, and it was a big shock to me. When I didn't know anything about being diabetic or whatever. I wasn't. I was just on the verge of it, and the doctor said, "Oh, I want to put you on a drug. I think it's called metformin." I remember that, and I said, "Oh, look, I'm just going off to do this big activity. Will I have a coma or something?" I just didn't know. And he said, "No, you'll be perfectly fine. So we're going to really high altitude. Yeah, you'll be fine. See when you come back." Well, in the meantime, I did all the reading I could, and I realised I've been making a big mistake. And I've learnt subsequently, fitness is health is 80% diet and 20% activity.
Yeah.
You can go to the gym all you like, but if you're eating crap, I'll say it out loud. If you're eating crap,
Yeah.
you're not. You might look healthy on the outside, but you may not be. So, and what I was doing, from a child really, used to make bread, eating tons and tons of bread, carbohydrate. All my food was, I could eat 20 roast potatoes. It was, if I cooked a meal, I'll be honest, if my wife cooked a meal, what I wanted was the pasta, the bread, and if I was thought I was a bit hungry, I'd make some thick bit of toast with salty butter on, and, lovely. I was never really into sweet things, but it was carbohydrates massively.
Ultra processed carbs.
It was literally killing me. I didn't know it. And I was fit, I thought.
And you can be fat and unhealthy. Yeah.
And that's it. So I read all about it, and I realised I had to cut the carbs down. What I would say to anyone is, if you're going to do that, take one thing at a time, because you're breaking a habit. And I felt not cold turkey, that's an exaggeration, but I didn't feel good for a couple of weeks because I was stopping myself eating. But the way I did it, because I love doing this, what we're doing, getting out, I just went through our stock cupboard at home and learnt for the first time how many carbs are in this, what's the percentages, and it just went, and we just didn't have it in the house at all. So, people talk about all these trendy diets like keto, carnivore, and the rest of it. you've got to do something that's sustainable. And I've been doing this for years now, since I learnt. And what I do is I eat low carb, which means, okay, the usual things: meat, fish, eggs, cheese, butter. That's all fine.
See, before we get into the carbs, you mentioned meat, fish, eggs,
Yeah.
butter. So has that stuff increased in your diet also? Whilst the carbs have went down?
Well, this is really interesting. I thought I'd have to eat tons and tons of meat to make up for it. But actually, it's like when you go to a Chinese, that's often carb-laden food. And it's lovely, I know, it's lovely. I'm not saying it isn't.
We were there last night.
Yeah, we were there last night. But it's carb-laden food. But quite often you eat that and then you're hungry a bit later. What I have found, once I got to that first fortnight, is that the cheese, fish, meat, eggs, and green vegetables, fibre, is enough.
Yeah.
It's enough. I'm just not hungry anymore. What happened was, well, the science is there. I went to the doctor 6 weeks later, and they tested me, and I was back to normal. And I've maintained that for nearly 6 years now. And he said, I haven't had a patient where I said, well, the science is, general doctors are general practitioners, aren't they? And the science is always moving. And at that time, there was a particular doctor in England, and I started to follow him, and I started to understand more about how my body worked. And that sounds a bit poncy, doesn't it? How my body worked. I don't mean it like that. What I understood was that I could eat like that. I wouldn't feel hungry, because that was my fear to start with. I wouldn't feel hungry. But Dean, you get energy from it. I mean, you've seen it.
Sure.
It doesn't. You're not held back in any way. And I have run a half marathon since with hardly eating any carbs beforehand, or no gels, nothing like that at all. I know it's not like running a marathon, but I come in with a good time that I'm pleased with, and I'm not going to brag about. But you got the energy, and I wasn't wrecked afterwards. No aches and pains. I think it had been different before. Well, it was different before. It was so different, really.
Yeah. So would it be safe to say that the diet that you eat and live by now, it's mostly, you've got your proteins, your meat, fish, eggs, you've got your colourful plants and all that, you've got some carbohydrates, you like your berries and is there any potatoes or anything like that?
I don't. Potatoes and pasta have gone for my life, okay. And bread. But I might root vegetables, I've got
So there is good sources of carbohydrates. Do you eat fruits? Besides berries?
I tell you what I don't eat. I do some apple, stuff like that, but tropical fruits like pineapple, mango, nothing. I mean, that's a sugar bomb, really. And I have to say it. One of the things I had to stop straight away was orange juice. When you look at the amount of sugar there is in orange juice, but it's lovely.
You don't get the same nutrients and fibre and stuff.
No, because it's been chopped up.
And there's so many oranges condensed into that. So you could take like one big orange, and you've got one of those really small bottles of orange juice, and I think there's like 3 to maybe 5 times the sugar, but much less.
Yeah, and it's all been mashed up, and so your body just sucks it up straight away.
And we're not meant to get that much sugar in one go. So it's not great for you, because it'll make you tired and lethargic.
I keep saying we're on the same page with this.
So most of your diet, really, it's safe to say it's mostly minimally processed, single ingredient, whole foods.
Absolutely right.
It's not heavily exclusive.
No, and
it's not heavily exclusive of red wine either. Because we saw last night you like your red wine.
Yeah.
That's an important thing, right? You've managed to reverse some medical health issues that were quite imminently a problem. But at the same time, you've done all this, you've got fitter and stronger. You're able to do this job that you love doing and still keep in some of the things that you really like. You've made the trade-offs elsewhere, and you still enjoy the nights out with the groups that you run in.
I'm not a monk. I'm not a monk, and
you have abs. I've seen them.
Well, look, I could tell you, like they say, abs. I don't think abs are made in the gym. I think it's about it's uncovering them. Everyone's got them, and what happened with this diet is not only did the internal fat drain away, and that was in 6 weeks. That's the bit I couldn't believe was going to be true, because the blood sugar just came to normal. But also, my wife said to me, "What have you been doing?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Have you been?" She thought I've got a felt tip pen. I've been jawing on my stomach for a joke. You've been mucking about at a party or something. Well, I come back from climbing somewhere with a group, and she went, "Oh my God, you're just a bloody teenager, aren't you?" Well, I don't feel like a teenager, but I feel far more active than I did when I was in my midlife, if you like.
Yeah.
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 And it's been diet and training, but I just want to emphasise this. I'm not a Superman or anything. It's just happened in little
Yeah.
bits, really, in just little bits. Starting that once a week, doing something when I was so busy working nights quite often and all day. Just that Sunday morning, getting up early and just making myself do that one thing. And the diet, I would have approached it in the same way, one thing at a time. But I just had to keep doing this.
Yeah, and we'll finish on. Well, firstly, you didn't do it for the abs. It was
No,
bigger
that's a
they,
byproduct.
They just came as a byproduct, which is
yeah.
a nice bonus.
Yeah.
And lastly, to finish on, what's the plans for the future? How long do you see yourself doing this? Do you see yourself stopping, or do you have more goals on the horizon with the adventure stuff?
Yeah, quite interesting. The history of my life is I've sort of moved from one activity into another, not by saying I'm suddenly going to be doing this, I'm suddenly going to be doing that. It just seems to have grown with the little changes, really.
Yeah.
I've got no intention of, at the moment, I'm not even thinking about stopping this. In fact, October I'm going to do a hike over the highest pass in the world, navigable pass in the world.
What's that?
It's at the Annapurna Circuit,
Oh, yeah,
in Nepal. It's higher than Everest Base Camp. I'll be leading that, and I've asked for 2027 that I lead it again. So I'm not Dean, I'm not, the day will come, sure it will, but at the moment, 2027 I'll be old, but not old.
Maybe we'll see you on the 2027.
Well, I want to see,
see
definitely
about
want to see you again, because you're going to beat me on the bike ride, haven't you?
That's it. Aye.
Yeah.
Well, we said we'd definitely come out here and do this again.
Yeah.
But this is convenient. It's a short flight.
Yeah.
It's a cheap week for
Yeah,
what it is.
yeah, it's a brilliant week.
We are struggling to believe how cheap it is to get this done, and you've got that different mental stimulus for the brain every day because we've got something.
Sure.
We're like achieving a new accomplishment, a new challenge.
Yeah.
From the Via Ferrata, the rock climbing, then by the way, the downhill mountain biking. Yesterday, that was my favourite. That was awesome.
Do you love it?
Yep. Aye.
Yeah.
It's given me a new appreciation for biking, although I'm not sure it would transfer to doing it in rainy Scotland.
That's the problem, isn't it? I think everything's easier out here, really, to be honest. And I go back to rainy North Devon tomorrow, so yeah. But I'll be carrying on doing the things that I do, really, which is just keep myself fit so I can continue to do this.
Yeah.
And it's not difficult. I've just got a routine now, and it's a habit.
Once things become habit, it's just completely normal. It doesn't take tons of willpower and discipline. It's part of your life.
I was such a bad teenager, and a 20-year-old, sparking all over the place, doing. But it's just getting old, isn't it? Being an old geezer. What I've learnt is that once you've got a habit, when you don't do that habit, you feel bad almost.
Yeah. Aye.
I've got to do it. So I've got to do whatever it is. I've got to do it. So, like my going to the gym, I'm in and out in an hour. I just do one set to max and then finish. In each exercise, I'm in and out in an hour. But that 1 hour, if I don't go that day, the day I go, I'm gonna make that up somewhere.
Ultimately, that's where we want to get with our fitness routines and the way we eat. When we build better nutrition into our lives, we want to practice it so much to the point where it becomes a miss if you miss it. Like if you have let's say a highly processed meal, you feel the difference. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Or if you miss
I
the
don't want to
workout,
feel like it.
if you miss a workout, you feel off. A little bit of anxiety because you're like, fuck, something's missing in my life.
Yeah.
Aye.
Well, I keep saying you and I are on the same page with that. Absolutely on the same page with that. It's the habit, but you've got to start to create it. The issue is not, for me, it was not trying to create too many habits.
Yeah.
Trying to do too many things. It's just that it all started from that once a week just kind of making myself go out. And then it became Sunday mornings. I woke up 6 and I got out and did it, you know. And then I was back for breakfast and carrying on as normal with the family, you know.
Yeah, quite right. Well done, Dave. You're a massive inspiration, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, well, thank
to
you. It's
sit
been
down
a
and
great
chat with
pleasure.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you
been
very
great.
much.
Yeah.